You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the 15th Doctor 2024 Christmas special, Joy to the World. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today is Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And special guest, I wasn't Father Corey Stiga, Father Chip Hines.
Hey, Dom. It's Father Chip Hines, yes.
Yeah, I'm so used to saying his name in this episode, in this podcast. Folks, be sure to get your very own Secrets of Doctor Who t-shirt or phone case or more by visiting our merchandise store at sqpn.com/merch. And I want to tell you about another new show on the StarQuest Network I'm sure you'll enjoy, called Vatican II in a Year. Father Matthew Schneider is going to take you every day of 2025, or whatever year you'd wish to start, little by little through the documents of the Second Vatican Council, opening them up and explaining them to you and helping all of us understand a little bit more about the Second Vatican Council. So you can check that out wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/Vatican. So we are discussing this time, Joy to the World. Jimmy, can you give us a recap of this story?
This week, the 15th Doctor visits the Time Hotel, an establishment in the future that is connected to hotels all throughout history. And currently, they're running a Christmas special connecting to all the Christmases throughout history. Also checking into the hotel is a victim of the Valengard Conflict Solutions Corporation who has a briefcase chained to his wrist. The briefcase is guided by an AI and keeps jumping hosts, killing the former carrier each time and mind controlling the new carrier. The briefcase ends up being attached to a young woman from 2024 named Joy, but the Doctor is able to make her mad enough that the briefcase comes off her. The Doctor also learns that the briefcase contains the seed of a star, but it needs to be planted 65 million years in the past to give the seed time to grow into an actual star, hence the Time Hotel. And Joy has taken them to a hotel room 65 million years in the past, where the new detached briefcase is eaten by a dinosaur. All this means that the star is now set up to detonate sometime in human history, and the Doctor is concerned that this will, kill everyone on Earth. He and Joy managed to track down the briefcase in another of the hotel's rooms, but as the Doctor is preparing to save the Earth by taking the star into space using the TARDIS before it can detonate, Joy takes the star seed herself. She merges with it and reveals that it was always Valengard's plan to get the star off of Earth so nobody will be hurt, except, for the briefcase carriers. She then flies off and becomes the star, which shines throughout all the different Christmases, and the Doctor realizes that the star is, in fact, the Star of Bethlehem, because, of course, it is. The end.
I saw that coming as soon as I heard Starseed.
Yeah.
Father Chip, what'd you think of this one?
Well, this is faint praise, but I thought it was probably the better story that I've seen from this Doctor. I liked the weird thing I liked about this was the story of him spending a year as a civilian, so to speak. And that part I enjoyed very, very much. The rest of it was kind of like I couldn't figure out the reasons for why things were happening. Like, why did the host that had this briefcase have to die? Why did those three characters in the hotel have to die? None of it kind of made sense to me. But overall, I guess I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed some of the other specials that they've done with this Doctor.
Okay. Jimmy, how about you?
I thought it was okay. It had Stephen Moffat dialogue, which was nice. I agree with Father Chip that the high point of the whole show is the year that the Doctor spends stuck in 2024. That's by far the most interesting thing in this. The rest of the stuff, okay, it's interesting, but it doesn't really hang together well. This has the same problem as Raiders of the Lost Ark and All the President's Men. Namely, the lead character doesn't do anything to contribute to the plot. It all would have played out basically exactly the same way it did if the Doctor had never been involved. So the doctor didn't display a lot of agency in this. It's just a lot of running around. Yeah. And the nicest part is when he's not running around, when he's just stuck and has to live and form relationships with people. And he forms a relationship. So in addition to Joy, who gets title credit, Joy to the World, there are two other major characters. One of them is a hotel clerk or concierge or something named Trev. And there's also a manager who I don't know that he gets a name, but he's a Silurian. And then there's this woman in 2024 who runs the hotel that Joy checks into, and her name is Anita. And she is really a nice character. She's really a good character. She has companion potential. She ends up working for the Time Hotel due to the doctor's influence once he gets back to the future, and he recommends her apparently to the Time Hotel, and they offer her a job. But there's fun stuff in it. And it's okay. It is not the best Doctor Who Christmas special. That would be A Christmas Carol with the 11th Doctor. But it's okay.
So, I agree with a lot of what you both said. I think it's a very Moffat story. It feels like a Stephen Moffat story, very much so. He likes to explore the strange possibilities and mundane mysteries, like hotel room doors or cemetery angels or that sort of thing. He then turns them into this mysterious connection to a strange world, and that's fine. That's fun. I would say it's probably the Doctor Who Christmas special that most touches on the actual meaning of Christmas, just by the virtue of the fact that Jesus is somewhere in the end of that story. It's not about Santa. It's not about, singing
Ebenezer
songs.
Scrooge.
Right. It actually ends up being about something connected to Jesus. So that was nice. I like that.
That was surprising.
And that's, I don't intend that to be faint praise. I do want to praise them for that, for connecting a Christmas special story to Jesus. It's not about Daleks run amok with the 13th Doctor and that sort of thing. So that was good.
I do have to point out, though, as a Bible geek, that there's no way this would work. Because so essentially the star is a nova. It's a new star. Novus is Latin for new. And so it's a newly appeared star, and that means that it has no meaning in any astrological system. And so therefore the wise men would say, oh, there's a new star that has no meaning. They're not going to say, oh, there's a new star that has no meaning. Let's go to Bethlehem. They're not going to say that. So it wouldn't work.
Right.
But that's the geek in me.
That's right. We willing to suspend our disbelief because you have to with especially with Doctor Who. I liked the idea of the Time Hotel. I thought that was fun. I thought there was some fun Easter egg doors. Everyone's probably noticed the Hobbit door, the round, Hobbit hole door, which I would love to go through. That would be it implies that Hobbiton exists somewhere in time. So that's
or at least Homo floriensis, but yeah,
you're right. So that was fun, and I liked the concept of that. You mentioned before I get to what you mentioned, I want to, as an overall concept, it feels like the 15th Doctor is much more about an exploration of the character internally than about plot and action. Because that's one of the things that I think both of you said is that the plot was thin in the sense, but it was much more that the part that I think all three of us liked the most, that year in the hotel with Anita, was really an internal exploration of the Doctor as a person. Much more so than we ever got with 13 or 12, especially.
I also really like Anita is just a great character. Even when she's introduced, she's just so unflappable. Yep. Joy, this woman from 2024, is checking into a hotel room for Christmas 2023, I guess. And she gets to her room, and the Doctor later on tells her this is when he's trying to make Joy mad. And the reason we find out that Joy is checking into the hotel room for Christmas is because her mom died at Christmas 2020 due to during the COVID virus pandemic. Apparently not from COVID, because when we see her mom, we don't see any respiratory symptoms. But because of the COVID pandemic, she was not allowed to go into the hospital and had to say goodbye to her mother for the last time over an iPad. Right. And she feels now like she can't be with anyone at Christmas, which I understand if you're, if you've had someone die at Christmas, that's going to mark your Christmases going forward.
Oh, sure.
So I understand all that, but she's checking into this hotel room and the Silurian shows up, and he's the current carrier of the briefcase. And Joy does not know what a Silurian is. And she happens, as she's exploring her room, as Anita is like putting the towels in the bathroom, Joy takes a hairdryer, happens to have a hairdryer in her hand. It looks like a laser gun. She points it at the Silurian and he freezes. And the doctor later, when he's trying to make Joy mad so that the briefcase will come off of her, he tells her that your hotel room is the worst, loneliest, saddest hotel room in the world. And I can tell you that is flatly not true. I take trips across the country. I drive across the country. I never know where I'm going to stop for the night. I tend to stop at Motel 6s because I can have my Siri tell me where's the nearest Motel 6 and get a room. And wow, I've been in much, much, much worse hotel rooms than what Joy was in. I mean, she didn't even have cockroaches. But when Anita is checking her in, the Silurian is there, and Joy is freaked out, and she says, "Why is there a lizard man in my room?" And Anita is just, "I'm sorry, this has never happened before." She's so unflappable.
That was great.
Yeah. Speaking of bad hotel rooms, there was the time I was driving back from college and got caught in a snowstorm in northern New Jersey and had to stop in Passaic at a hotel where the clerk was behind bars. It was much worse than the Sandringham Hotel in London, that's for sure.
Now they're just behind thick plate plastic.
Yes. Right. So the doctor, you said that the doctor doesn't really have agency or anything to do. There was one thing that I think if the doctor had not intervened, it wouldn't have gone the way it did, which is if he hadn't gotten Joy mad enough, to be introspective about her motivations and what's going on with her, I'm not sure she would have absorbed that star seed at the end. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, or is that?
Well, they don't connect the two. I mean, she apparently the starseed has some kind, or the briefcase has some kind of influence over the carrier, and it causes them to spout Valengard rhetoric. Like the starseed will bloom and the flesh will rise.
Right.
And the flesh rising part is a reference, apparently, to the fact that Joy is going to ascend with the starseed when it becomes a star. Yeah. So it seems like that was part of Valengard's plan. So it wouldn't have been Joy because of the time travel. It wouldn't have been Joy who ended up carrying the starseed at the last, but it would have been some hotel guest.
True.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, there was. Again, there was a lot of, I think, just not things that just didn't connect in the story, and I don't want to gloss over the fact that like Trevor and the bartender and the Silurian all died for basically no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just.
Although in typical Stephen Moffat format, he walks those deaths a half a step back by having their data ghosts uploaded to the Valengard system. So their data ghosts aren't dead. It's just they're dead.
Right. Which
no one ever dies.
Being dead, I guess.
Yeah.
That bothered me because that whole scene in the bar where they were passing it back and forth why did it exist? It didn't have to exist at all.
Why did it jump from person to person? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the briefcase was trying to get to a particular floor in the hotel, and it needed someone. And because the floor was full, it needed someone who had access. Right. And so it ultimately needed
the manager.
First, it needed an employee, which was a bartender. Then it went to Trev, who I think was actually security. I think he had a security badge. And
Like I know what a 42nd century security badge looks like.
I think it said security on it, but I was looking closely on my second watch through. So that could be excused. And then, ultimately, it makes him take it to the manager who would have access to everything. Right. So that would be it's just trying to find the person who has access. But you're right. I mean, it does seem a bit gratuitous that all of these people die. And that's one of the things that kind of sometimes bothers me about some of the Doctor Who stories is how disposable life is sometimes with the people that the Doctor encounters. And, it's like he feels bad, especially about Trev a little bit, but then we move on and, and we don't really feel bad about, and he felt bad about the Silurian. I thought that was good that they had him. He was very emotional as the Silurian was dying.
He's the only character that dies in front of him.
Right.
Yeah. But also there's no reason once it has the Silurian why it wants to try to jump again, because it's got all access to the hotel now. It can go anywhere it wants.
Right.
But nevertheless, it wants to jump to the Doctor when they're in the 2024 hotel room. And presumably this is because, and they gesture at this, but it goes by really quick, but it's presumably because the Doctor is this time traveler and that's somehow going to help the Starseed, but it's not really clear how, because all the Silurian needs to do is walk up to the right floor and go into the right door.
Right.
And then by mistake, it ends up on Joy instead.
Right.
Didn't know what the right door was. That's the thing. I mean, with the Doctor, like he's got a TARDIS. He just needs to walk in, set 65 million years ago, and go. I suppose. Maybe it's not a very bright AI suitcase.
Well, then don't be sending it to deliver a star.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Well, Villengard, we've learned, is not the most ethical or bright of all the bad guys that we've encountered. I thought it was interesting that Villengard has showed up again, especially given that we know that the new main companion of this next season is going to at least be the same actress who was in the Villengard episode of last season.
Yeah, I suspect that's unrelated. I think the real reason is when that actress in the episode that actress was in was also written by Stephen Moffat, and Villengard is a creation of Stephen Moffat. He introduced it in the first, I forget the name of the episode, but in the 9th Doctor's one season where they go back to World War II and they introduce Captain Jack, and that's when they first mentioned Villengard.
Right, that's the "Are You My Mummy?"
Yeah, the empty child.
Empty child. Thank you. Yeah. Speaking of callbacks to previous stories, I felt like that the whole the Doctor having to go around the long way, which I thought was a really nice and interesting timey-wimey element to introduce into the story. Reminded me a lot of The Power of Three, which was when the Doctor stayed, the little cubes appeared all over the Earth. And so the Doctor stayed with Amy and Rory, living their regular day-to-day life outside the TARDIS.
For a year. Yeah.
For a year. And it's a big contrast to how the 11th Doctor handled it versus how the 15th Doctor handled it. It was very different. He kind of got into it. It became part of his, he was part of the routine. It was something, in fact, that he seemed to enjoy after a time. So I thought that was kind of interesting difference.
Yeah, he was working at the hotel during that year, to, I guess, pay the rent and keep his room. But he did a whole bunch of stuff. There were nice little timey-wimey winks or Doctor Who winks to the audience. Like at one point he fixes a microwave oven and Anita comments it's now bigger on the inside, and then the Doctor fixes the sat nav, meaning the GPS,
right,
in Anita's car, and she complains that now it doesn't take her where she wants to go, and he says no, but it takes you where you need to go, which is what the TARDIS does. And she also says, and why is my car blue now?
Right.
I like that. Was great.
That was excellent. Yeah. He also he drops very quickly, and you may not even notice it. I noticed it because I always have the captions on. He uses the word Mavity, so we're still doing that. And I wonder if that is going
although in he refers to rotational Mavity in a context where I don't believe that makes sense. But at least they got the word Mavity in there.
I wonder if Mavity is going to be like the indicator that we're in this, as we talked about before from the specials, the 60th anniversary specials. We're in this fantasy version of creation of reality. And once we switch back to using the word gravity, if we ever do,
they have used gravity before. In the new Russell T Davies era. I think it's just an in joke that they're doing for a while, and they're going to be inconsistent about it.
Okay. See, I'm trying to think of some other things. I liked Trev. I thought he was an interesting character. He was security, but he doesn't come across as a heavy, and that was actually, I mean, it's so much so that you're not, even sure he's security unless you see the badge. But he's at least an employee there, and he's kind of amenable. That the doctor does his usual blustering his way through things. The doctor's landing at the Time Hotel because he needs milk for his coffee, his morning coffee. I thought that was a nice little touch.
And he's got a Homan routine in his navigation to find fresh milk. And he says, or I could just get a fridge. So a nice little self-awareness there.
A nod to the fact that the doctor's now traveling alone because he's by habit has 2 mugs of coffee. And he does give one to Trev, and Trev says it's bigger on the inside, which is another nice. I would love a coffee cup that's bigger on the inside. That would be really nice.
It would be very nice. No. I thought Trev was a good character. I thought actually I liked most of the characters in this episode. The actors were actually very good. Sometimes you on Doctor Who you get 1 or 2 clunker actors. But I didn't think there was really clunkers this time. I thought they were pretty good. Like Jimmy said, the actress that played Anita was great. And I would have loved for her to be the new companion.
So apropos of that, I've seen a fan theory, and it is just a fan theory. So take it with a monstrous, huge boulder of salt. But there is a proposal that Anita may be Mrs. Flood. And if you look at the younger actress who plays Anita, she does kind of look like a younger version of Mrs. Flood, and it would explain why Mrs. Flood knows so much about the TARDIS and the Doctor and things like that. Now, I think that's unlikely, but it's at least a possibility.
It would require Anita to go work at the Time Hotel, then go travel back in time, age, to be Mrs. Flood. But
that's true. Yeah,
That is an interesting
theory. I hadn't given that much thought, but it would. I just think, as a character, she was just a great character.
By the way, I really like, so this being Stephen Moffat, this is unusually timey-wimey. I mean, we've got the Time Hotel, we've got the year he spends, we've got 65 million years in the past. There's a lot of timey-wiminess over this. Just another little bit is when the Doctor goes, he decides to go undercover to try to track down what's going on in the hotel because he sees the guy with the briefcase. At this point, he doesn't know what's in the briefcase, but he senses something is going on. And so he's gonna go undercover to try to find out what's going on. And he enlists Trev in this, which is interesting to Trev. He's, as a security guy, I guess he's interested in this secret mission that he and the Doctor now have. But to go undercover, the Doctor pretends to be room service. And so what he does is he orders himself a ham and cheese toastie and a pumpkin latte, which he then tries going into all the rooms to deliver to the people who were in the rooms. None of them ordered it. So he just basically is to just get a peek into these rooms, to see who's there. Is the briefcase guy there? And he rapidly goes from room to room throughout time. But when the Doctor, here's the added bit of timey-wiminess, when the Doctor has the menu in front of him and, presses the pay diamond, which is based on the Doctor Who logo, instantly a person from room service steps up to him and says, here's your ham and cheese toastie and pumpkin latte. And Trev explains that the kitchens get your order 30 minutes in started 30 minutes in the past from when you ordered. So you get your food instantly because they've already been preparing it for 30 minutes. The doctor does note, though, that the ham and cheese toastie is still microwaved, and Trev says, well, you can't expect miracles.
That was good. Yeah, there was a
toastie, by the way, is apparently just a toasted sandwich.
Yes. Like a cheese melt or like a grilled cheese sandwich, or we call it. I like the fact that, like we mentioned, all the Moffatisms. There's the moment in the year in the hotel where the doctor and Anita are debating. Anita thinks that the idea of the weeping angels who can only move when you're not looking at them is kind of silly, which is great because that's a Stephen Moffat invention. He's poking fun at himself. And there's a couple other nice lines, like when the doctor learns that the Time Hotel, they're doing a Christmas Everywhere at Once special. He says, no wonder there was no room at the inn, which is one of those time travel, one of those things where like people will sometimes say, of course, time travel couldn't be real, because if it was, Bethlehem would be packed with time travelers, right? Everyone in Bethlehem at the birth of Christ would be a time traveler, because everyone throughout the history of time travel would want to go see it live, or the crucifixion or whatever. Maybe that's why there's no room at the inn in Bethlehem.
Well, and there's just two problems with that. The first one is if branch and timelines work, then only some timelines are going to be full up, and we're just not in one of those timelines. The second reason is that's not what no room at the inn means. It is actually a mistake to think that Tom Bodette turned off the light at Motel 6 in BC 3. That is not what the word in Greek is kataluma, and it refers to a lodging place, and specifically it refers to a lodging place within a house. It's the part of the house where the family lived. And so I actually did my Christmas episode of the Jimmy Akin podcast was all about this. But like when Jesus has the Last Supper, he tells the disciples, go to this guy's house and he'll show you a large cataluma that's already set up for us. So it's the part of the house where the people lived. And meanwhile, the animals lived on the lower level of the house. And so that's why Mary, it's all full up because the Roman enrollment. And so the living area is full. So Mary and Joseph go down to the animal part of the house for some privacy for the baby Jesus.
Right. That's why,
again,
stable.
Me being a Bible geek,
That's good. No, we get the good stuff.
Before I forget, what about that scene where Joy has the briefcase locked onto her? He opens it up and he has to press in a code,
right?
And then he gets the code from himself,
right?
Yeah,
that's a little weird.
Well, it ends up being a bootstrap paradox, which he acknowledges.
Right.
Yeah. He refers to it as bootstrapping, and he says, yeah, it's weird. It comes from nowhere, but so did the universe, and no one complains about that.
Yeah. I thought that was an interestingly funny line, but
that was a fun way to deal with it, like to write around it. Nobody complains about the universe coming from nothing. Okay.
That's right.
Speaking of Trev, he talks early on. He says, when he's recruited, this is the least I will ever let anyone down. And he lives up to it. I mean, in fact, that's kind of why his uploaded data ghost does what it does independent of the briefcase's AI, is because as he was dying, apparently, they don't spell it out, but it's apparently, from my point of view, he is determined to not let the doctor down, and that's why it is able to act independently within the briefcase. So I thought that was a nice, interesting part of Trev. Like he comes across a little buffoonish at first, a little silly, but he ends up being actually an effective, competent person in the end, which I think is good. But
you know what else is interesting about that is what happened to them afterwards? Like, are they still in the briefcase? Is he still a ghost
in the star?
They're presumably
in the star.
Star. Yeah.
Okay.
Because as Joy had absorbed the star, she was glowing internally.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
which is a bit of a maternal pregnancy sort of
It also makes no sense if you've got a star. Number one, even if you say the briefcase is bigger on the inside, so it can contain an entire star. They treat it like this is a seed that's going to detonate and become a star at some moment, in which case it doesn't need 65 million years.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, and then it doesn't need to get inside a human being and zoom off into heaven. So this doesn't make any sense. This is all just poetic imagery.
Right.
It's Stephen Moffat science fantasy.
But as she's glowing, you see the other briefcase carriers briefly flash, cycle through their images.
That's right. Yeah.
So they're there, but I like there's a bit of a line where the doctor says, "Pardon my French, but what the French is going on," and then uses French in that term several times.
I thought that was nice. I like, pardon my French, but what the French is going on. And then later when he sees the dinosaur, he says, "Oh, French."
Yes. So that's good. I thought we had that opening scene where we talked, you mentioned how the doctor went to the various hotel rooms, and we start with this elderly couple in a hotel in London during the Blitz. And in the beginning, they basically have no hope, right? There's no hope of, this is it, everything's going to fall. The Nazis are going to win, take over. But at the end, they have hope, and something changed in between. And the only difference being the star as a sign of hope at Christmas. And, I don't want to stretch it too far. That's it. That why should going out and seeing a star in the sky on Christmas, change everything? But
why are they implying the star is only just appearing on Christmas Eve every Christmas? Because the way real stars work, they hang up there forever. Once they start.
Right. Is it a timey-wimey star where it shined throughout all of history, starting on, they say, when they finally show the final caption, because they're using on-screen captions to tell us when we are in history. Right. And the final one is Bethlehem 0001. Right.
Which it would be AD 1. Now, that's not when Jesus was born, and even on the traditional reckoning, that's not when Jesus was born. But this is silly British children's family science fiction. So
we have to make it clear to the general audience that this is Bethlehem at Christmas. So start with 1.
I thought that older lady had a funny line at the beginning, she's like, "Shut the window, there's a war on."
Very, very upper crust British, we're very stiff upper lip. That was really nice.
They also, and so the older couple are in one of the rooms that the doctor breaks into. Right. And apparently the way the Time Hotel works is the Time Hotel only normally has access to a room if it's not occupied in its native time period.
Right.
And so this couple is really from 1940. They're not guests of the Time Hotel. They're guests of the 1940 hotel. And so the Time Hotel is not supposed to have access to this room because there are time native guests in it. But the doctor uses his override to enter the room anyway. And then they touch on something that I guess various hotel guests wonder about, because hotel guests will sometimes notice they have an extra locked door in their room. And this may be more common in Europe than it is in America. But they wonder, where do these doors go? And it's like, well, okay, and the on-screen explanation is, they all go to the Time Hotel. But I actually used to manage a motel. And so I've actually been in the hidden passageways behind rooms where they keep all the plumbing and electrical stuff so the hotel guests don't have to see it. But that's what's really hidden back there.
But couldn't it have just been an adjoining room door too?
Yeah. Or
that's what I always thought it was.
Yeah. Or a closet containing extra supplies, or
right.
But hey, maybe it really is the Time Hotel. That would be
nice.
A couple other fun moments. Well, not so much fun. I thought it was interesting. We talked about the doctor focusing on the dying Solarian manager, and he does so to the point where he ignores Joy, who's now strapped to this briefcase with a star in it, he loses track of her in a sense here. And, you know, what am I trying to say? It's interesting how this present danger of a star that's going to explode somewhere in Earth's history, which would destroy, Earth's future, is not top of mind to him. It's this dying person in front of him. And I think it says a good thing about the Doctor here. We talked a little earlier about how casually people die, in these stories, and the Doctor. But in this case, the Doctor is very much present to this dying Silurian, and it almost takes you out of the story for a moment and just kind of stops as he focuses on a person, which is good. I think that's a good thing to not overlook the death of a person.
Yeah, and I feel like they're trying to maybe explore, as we mentioned earlier, some of the inner aspects of the Doctor's character this time around. And I think him focusing on someone who's dying in front of him is that's showing his sort of I'm using this word loosely, humanity. And I think that's a good thing, because in the past, I think sometimes the Doctor has overlooked those things. Oh, yeah, he's dead or she's dead. It's okay. Let's move on to the next thing before this really bad thing happens, Right. So I think that's a good aspect of this Doctor.
One thing that I liked in this is, this is again just on the dialogue level, but Joy does not know what the sonic screwdriver is, and she sees the Doctor using it, and she refers to it as his zappy thing, and he says it's a sonic screwdriver, and then he says, actually, zappy thing makes more sense, which it frankly does. So I liked that. There's one little exchange in the dialogue I'm kind of two minds about, where the briefcase is explaining what's going on with the star. And there's this line of, you're being mansplained by a briefcase. And I have never cottoned to the word mansplain. It doesn't mean anything. It's just an insult. Men don't explain things in some different way than women do. So I guess it's supposed to mean like explain in an insensitive or thoughtless manner or condescending or something. But I'm sorry, men don't have a monopoly on that.
That's for sure.
And so
fifth.
Yeah, so I've never appreciated this term, but it is a little funny in this context. And even the Doctor has a line that's something like, "Well, you're traveling with the Doctor. That's mansplain central." Yes.
She says, "I thought I was being mansplained by you," and he says, "The Doctor's in the room. That's mansplain central."
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right. Yeah, and which is because there's so much exposition on the show. Right. A lot of which comes from the Doctor. So, I thought that was funny, even if I'm not a fan of this term. Another thing I wasn't a fan of is, and again, this is just the science, and it's like, Stephen Moffat, you could have fixed this on the dialogue level. Dialogue is what you're good for.
Yep.
But at one point, they're explaining what's going on inside the briefcase, and the Doctor says that inside the briefcase, there's a starseed, which is a single atom, and in that atom, a chain reaction has already begun. No, that is not what chain reactions are. Chain reactions are reactions involving chains of atoms, not within a single atom.
Yes, that is the chain part. Speaking of the Doctor explaining things, there's a later line where I think it's Joy who asks, when you explain things, do people usually feel any better? No. No. I thought that was good.
Yeah, that was good.
When he's spending his year at the hotel, the concept of a chair becomes very important. The idea, he realizes there are no chairs in this current version of the TARDIS. Yeah. And what that means symbolically for him, since he doesn't have a companion right now, and he's sort of thinking like, maybe I don't have someone who travels with me because I've made myself unwelcoming, or I'm not sure what he's getting at, but in what he does eventually do is has this chair in the hotel room that he invites Anita to sit in, and they form this bond, and they have chair night.
Chair night.
Yeah,
they get together,
and the chair is something you have as a form of hospitality. Mm-hmm. And he earlier, when he first realizes he doesn't have any chairs on the TARDIS, it's like, oh no, I don't have any chairs. He realizes no one ever drops by. Well, you're not putting out chairs for people to sit in. You're not being a welcoming host.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you mentioned the GPS and the microwave, there was a third thing that I thought was really funny, where she hands him a plunger and tells him to go fix the toilet in one of the rooms, and he looks at it and goes, "Is it armed?"
Armed?
Yeah, like a Dalek,
like a Dalek eye stalk, yeah, or a Dalek plunger.
Yeah,
that was a great line. That was a great line. I enjoyed in this episode. I think we've all hit on it, and Jimmy particularly has hit on the dialogue aspect of this episode. That's what apparently, Moffat's,
which is really good
really good at. And of all the episodes that in this current iteration of the Doctor, I'd rather have Moffat writing them.
Yes.
Than Russell T Davies. Yeah. I mean, and his dialogue is snappy, and it has
his plots are timey-wimeier.
They are, and it's just I think it's just a much more enjoyable experience, just to have him writing the episodes. And he had, I guess, famously said he wasn't going to do it again, and then has always just done it again.
I think he's the best modern writer of Doctor Who.
I think you're right.
In the modern
I think you're right.
Although he does have flaws as a writer, some of which we talked about during his era.
Yeah.
And he also, this is a minor element in this episode, which is why I haven't mentioned it up to now, because I wanted to get on the table all the things I really liked about this episode. And this is a minor flaw on the dialogue level, but they continue to have these gay jokes.
Yep.
So they indicate that the Doctor has the hots for Trev at one point, and Trev apparently reciprocates that. Also, one of the rooms that the Doctor goes into is in 1962. I think it's on a train.
The Orient Express.
The Orient Express. And the woman traveling, apparently, if you check the credits, is named after the first Bond girl. But so she's like an homage to the James Bond franchise, but she's apparently writing a love letter to a fellow female. And it's like, guys, this is a family show. It's Christmas. And in general, I just rather not have this, but at least they're not shoving it in our face this time. It's on the dialogue level. It goes by quick. And so, it's not near as bad as it could be, but it is something that detracts. Something that I also wondered about was because the show has become so identity politics central that now I can't look at an episode of Doctor Who and notice diversity without wondering, is this some kind of statement here? Whereas I used to could, like in Midnight, which actually is penned by Russell Davies, is, I think, the best episode of Doctor Who ever written. Yeah. And it's one of the 4 that I show a person who's never seen Doctor Who before. And I was showing it to someone last night, and I was noticing, so here in Midnight, we have a very small cast that are confined to this basically bus that's traveling across the surface of the planet Midnight. We've got the Doctor, we have a driver, we have a mechanic, we have a hostess, and then we've got the passengers. And the passengers are an old professor, his young assistant, and a family of 3. And and 3 of these characters happen to be black. The mechanic is black, the hostess is black, and the young assistant of the professor is black. And she is the one that has the most companion potential. She's kind of a temporary companion in this episode. She's the most sympathetic. She's really smart. She's central to the plot. And I didn't have to, back then, I didn't have to think about anything. I just accepted, these are these characters, and I thought they were great. And I didn't I didn't mind or care one way or another what ethnic backgrounds they came from. But this show has become so political in its cast-in, where, we can't have Davros in a chair now because that says something about handicapped people. And we must have a scientific advisor for UNIT who's in a wheelchair now. And we've got to change up the races and the sexes and it's become so political that now with this Christmas special, I see, the woman who plays Joy, she's obese. And I have to look at that and not just accept this character, but wonder, are they making some extra kind of statement about body positive imagery here or something?
Right.
But I think whether they were or not, it ends up working.
Yeah.
Because when the Doctor gets mean, and here he essentially does the same thing that the Seventh Doctor did to Ace at one point, again, for their own good. But when the Doctor is being cruel to Joy, the fact that she's obese helps her convey this sense of insecurity, and even potentially, self unappreciation, if I can put it that way. And this is something I know about because I spent decades being obese before I finally figured out how I could lose weight. I mean, I was over 300 pounds at one point, and I've really struggled with weight. But I think regardless of whether they meant it as a statement, I think they handled it in an artistic way. And so initially I was hesitant to say, this is our temporary Christmas companion. Is this a statement? But then they redeemed it by exploring Joy's own insecurities. And I thought, this makes Joy a much more interesting character.
Right.
I agree with that.
They're not glossing this over. They're treating it, even though they don't really refer to it, it's part of her character, and she's got this whole network of things that give her reason to feel bad at Christmas. And this is plausibly one of them. And she's a much more interesting character once they explore her own feelings about Christmas and herself and her mom and everything. It really makes her a much more rich character. And so I didn't have a problem in the end, but I didn't like the fact I had to initially ask that question.
There was a similar moment of restraint when they were talking about her mom dying under COVID, alone in the hospital under COVID lockdown, where Joy kind of points out, I could only talk to her on an iPad while other people were having parties. Mm-hmm. And that is if people are not familiar with recent British politics, is possibly a reference to the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. There was a scandal about how in the midst of the lockdown, they were having parties at Downing Street, and just like Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi and lots of American politicians were doing the same thing. Right. And so
I thought that was good commentary, actually.
It was good. It was restrained. It didn't get too political. I think everyone understood exactly what they were saying, and the hypocrisy she's pointing out, and then how that hypocrisy harmed people in real life. And I appreciated them addressing that. So that was really good.
Yeah, I thought that was excellent commentary because, Boris Johnson gets a bad rap, on that stuff, but it wasn't all him either. But it was, but I think them pointing it out is a good thing because all of the power people of the world needed to be kind of called out on that.
Yeah.
I was lucky that I was able to go see my grandmother before she died. And, and that was only because they were loosening the COVID restrictions at that point. If she had died when I couldn't have visited her, I would have been very upset.
Right. There was a moment where the doctor says that, which I think I appreciate the most in this line, where he says, "Mums, when they're gone, they never stop saving us." And that struck home for me because I lost my mom recently, and I felt it's a particularly beautiful line in the context here as well.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm trying to see what else we need to say about this.
We should mention just briefly that Ruby Sunday has a cameo appearance, but the doctor doesn't meet her in this. We just see her at home.
Yes, she gets a call or
a brief call.
Yes. So Joy at the end says she's not dying, she's changing. The flesh will rise, the star will shine, which it's now different from perhaps what Villengard intended. And I will shine everywhere and forever, she says.
Yeah, that's not how stars work.
No. Anita gets.
I'm sorry. Between science and religion, they're not getting either one of them right. But
they're not.
The geek in me has to note that.
I love it when you note it.
So Anita gets hired at the Time Hotel on the doctor's recommendation, which I thought was a nice little wrap up for Anita. Mm-hmm. I noted that Joy's mom is in Royal Hope Hospital. Mm-hmm. Hope being a term that is often found in this story, and in fact, at the end, he's the doctor says, "Of course you are. You are Joy," and he yells out "Joy to the world," outside Bethlehem. And I felt like, I don't know if Moffat intended this, but "You are Joy, Joy to the world." That's as much addressed, I think, in some way to Jesus as it is to, he is the joy and the hope that we turn to. It's no, I mean, he's standing in Bethlehem yelling out "Joy to the world." That is got to be, even if unintentionally on Moffat's part, something to do with Jesus. And I thought that was a really nice moment there.
It was.
And I have to say, as soon as they said Starseed, I said, "Oh, it's Christmas. That's the Star of Bethlehem." It was clear.
It was pretty clear.
So, Father Chip, do you have any other last notes on this one before we wrap things up?
I am all set.
How about you, Jimmy?
Nope.
So I did promise some listener feedback, so I just want to quickly go through that because we love getting listener feedback. This is from our recent episode, last episode, Nightmare of Eden with the Fourth Doctor. Robert Hawkins on our Facebook page writes, "Odd coincidence, your last story. The Time Warrior had the same director as this one, Alan Bromley. That might explain the actor David Daker, or Doker, the font, I can't do with ARO, being in both stories. From what I've read, Bromley had a bit of trouble on the Time Warrior as well, but nothing like this one. Remember, the Nightmare of Eden was a bad shoot. As a kid... Not
a terrible episode, but a bad shoot.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
As a kid, though, the Mandrels look like Sweetums from the Muppet Show's cousin. It's true. And for whatever reason, whose poor budgets never bothered me at all as a kid, and I couldn't get into original series Star Trek to save my life. And Tom's dismissal of Trist's excuses at the end is one of his great underrated bits of acting."
It is. It is. That is well acted by Baker.
Yes. Yep. I think we called out the Mandrels looking like HR Puff and stuff, but the Sweetums too. Excellent. Well, thank you, Robert, for your feedback. We do appreciate that. And now, before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including David H., Jonathan A., Marie P., Colin H., and Nancy R. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. This StarQuest show is also brought to you by Exodus 90 and the Exodus 90 Challenge, which begins this year on January 20th. This isn't just a 90-day program. Exodus 90 is a spirituality for men in modern times, built on 3 ancient pillars: prayer, self-sacrifice, and fraternity. We all long for something more, and that something is to be found in becoming the men that God created us to be, sons of a loving Father. It's time to turn away from our idols. It's time to break free from the pharaohs that hold us in bondage. If you're ready to make a fresh start, to break free, refocus, and rediscover who God is calling you to be in the new year, and embark on a journey to uncommon freedom in Jesus Christ, then download the Exodus 90 app today. We start January 20th, 2025, so go to exodus90.com/SQPN to learn more about Exodus 90. That's exodus90.com/SQPN. So that's it from this time. We would love to know what you thought of Joy to the World. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com, the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, and send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can watch us and leave comments on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing in our 400th Secrets of Doctor Who episode. We'll be discussing the special direct to VHS Downtime video. So that's going to be an interesting discussion. Also, I should point out the 15th Doctor's next season is apparently coming in May of 2025. So just that's when you'll see that from us discussing that. So until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Dom, and I want to thank Father Chip for being here with us, and maybe you can join us again when the 15th Doctor's next season appears.
I'm open to that, and I thank you for the invitation, and it was great to be with you guys.
Thank you, Father Chip.
Oh, okay, come on.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, the starseed will bloom and the flesh will rise.